Northern piled on the pressure early, and while the Blues' first cross was called back, there was no mistaking the second. The Cheetahs clawed back through a great try and an even better conversion, but then it was the Blues' turn again, courtesy of Shane Leilota. The seesawing continued, Steve Story bagging 6 to put Waratah in front 12-10. A Blues penalty made it 12-all at the break, but not before another disallowed try. A third early in the second act attracted plenty of anger from their fans, the Cheetahs though keeping their cool to snare a 1-point lead. A massive Mark Jones penalty kick reversed the deficit, but not for long, Michael Reid putting the Cheetahs 19-14 in front. After consecutive sets of 6, the Blues finally found a gap, Mark Jones needing this kick to put his side in front with a few minutes remaining. The ladder leaders taking the match 19-18.
A police motorcyclist was patrolling the Pacific Highway near Guandolan at dawn this morning. He stopped to investigate a Commodore sedan parked alongside the northbound lanes.
His intention was to speak to the occupants of that vehicle. There were 3 people in it. As it was, the vehicle was unregistered.
The policeman approached the driver's side to speak to the occupants and discovered the man had blackened his face. Before he could question him further, the driver tried to make a run for it, but the officer headed him off.
The police officer and that driver then became involved in a fairly lengthy struggle at the side of the road, in which the person of interest attempted to take the police officer's firearm from his holster.
The man disappeared into roadside bushland, and despite a search, no trace of the man was found. Police now want anyone who may have witnessed the incident or may have even picked up a man in the area between 6 and 7 o'clock this morning to come forward. He's described as being in his 20s, of slim to solid build with short cropped hair. The man's face was blackened as a disguise. He was also wearing a khaki jacket, black pants and a black beanie. The 2 other occupants of the car are helping police with their inquiries. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
We had capacity audiences at all our concerts and standing ovations at every event, which was awesome.
It's the start Newcastle Marine has been hoping for. The small shipbuilding manufacturer beat several companies from Brisbane and Sydney today to be awarded a state government contract to build its first 12-metre boat for National Parks and Wildlife.
It's a great feather in our cap to win this one, and especially when this is the first time that we've built a vessel from scratch.
The company has previously specialised in manufacturing marine components and fitting out vessels, but this is the job they're hoping will see them forge ahead as a major player in shipbuilding. Already the company has put on an additional 6 staff.
It'll open the door for them to bid for other government work in building boats as well as other private work.
Work on the 42.5-foot survey vessel is underway, workers hoping to come in well before the November deadline. Helen Kapalos, NBN News. According to New South Wales Farmers Association President John Cobb, the approach signals a brave new direction for farmers. Addressing his members at the state conference today, he said being commercially aware will make a radical difference to the profession.
We live in a commercial world. We have to learn to help our farmers in a commercial way.
And that commercial way includes the impact of the telecommunications revolution, the internet now a new tool on farms which can help forge new markets. Mr Cobb is now encouraging his members to once again look at doing business with Asia.
And I believe that we can get a return on our resources to go out and establish links to find markets and create alliances with our nearest trading partners.
Helen Kapalos, NBN News. This is how the community responded 9 years ago when budget cuts forced the closure of the Wallsend Hospital. But now the community has a new fight on its hands, with doctors warning that lack of money and commitment from GPs will force a replacement after-hours service to close its doors next month. And they say the solution isn't all that difficult.
And a commitment from the Hunter Urban Division of General Practice and the local doctors to provide what amounts to, say for 50 doctors, around about 2 after-hours sessions every 3 months. That's all it takes.
Describing it as a crisis situation, the Hunter Urban Division of GPs agrees more doctors are needed, but says it would be difficult to keep operating under the existing model.
We'd be less than keen to continue the bulk billing approach at Wallsend, although we'll have to have a look at it.
His sentiments today were echoed by the New South Wales Health Minister.
My commitment is to find a solution to make sure that GP clinic stays in place.
One possible solution now is to adopt a new service closer to the Maitland After Hours Clinic, a free service to patients funded by the GPs themselves and the federal government. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
Pegs are in place, but a Parliamentary Works Committee at Newcastle Town Hall will determine whether CSIRO Energy Centre goes ahead on Steel River. Last night, CSIRO held a community meeting before it fronts the PwC next month. It's still the only project with a firm public commitment to Steel River, but the marketers say there's more in the pipeline.
We can't speak for other companies, and whilst we know that, well, I can tell you that we've got 4 contracts out and another 3 ready to go, we can't disclose publicly who those companies are.
One problem faced by the Steel River project is the perception that it would supply jobs quickly. Alan Norton says the project has already been fast-tracked in terms of planning requirements, reducing the development timeline to about a decade. But he does admit that the project is about 9 months behind schedule.
That's probably, it's only about 10%, but that could be easily picked up over the next 2 years with the number of projects and the interest that people have got.
Ian McKillop likes to walk around Morisset Hospital, but late yesterday it seems he walked a little too far.
He's a person who has full range of the hospital grounds, and it would appear at this stage that he's left the grounds and has wandered off either into the bush or along the road towards one of the townships.
After a brief search by staff and police, a scaled-up operation began early this morning involving 30 SES volunteers and the Westpac Rescue helicopter. But despite canvassing surrounding bushland and waterways, no trace was found of the 54-year-old, with the search called off late this afternoon, police turning to the public for help.
We're very concerned for his welfare. It was cool last night, and we also have concerns that he may have injured himself whilst walking through the bush or in the surrounding areas.
Mr McKillop's described as around 160 centimetres tall, average build and with a fair complexion. He has light brown receding hair, blue eyes, is missing some front teeth, doesn't communicate verbally and walks with a distinctive gait with his feet turned outwards. Anyone with information is asked to contact police or Morisset Hospital. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Whatever happens in the city's rail debate, Newcastle's MP Bryce Gaudry labels the new crossing a $5 million traffic solution.
It's going to make a much better traffic flow for people linking between Stewart Avenue and Hannell Street. It cuts out that awful dog leg on Hannell and Hunter Street.
From Sunday, the new Stewart Avenue gates will open and the Hannell Street gates will close. Traffic queue detectors will coordinate signals, while temporary signs will inform motorists of the changes. Stage 2 will see the new intersection built on the harbour side of the gates, joining Wharf Road. Then a section of that road will be absorbed in a new development.
And it's going to give clear parcels of land around Wickham Station that will be there for development, whether it be residential, commercial or retail development in this area.
Scott Armstrong was barely 18 when he and his sister headed home after a night out on the town. It was a decision that cost 23-year-old Kim her life after the Suzuki Sierra her younger brother was driving smashed into a power pole near Hexham. A blood test showed a blood alcohol level of 0.154, a result in the high range category. During sentencing in Newcastle District Court today, Judge Coulahan said he had no choice but to impose a full-time sentence. The 19-year-old was jailed for 18 months with a non-parole period of 6 months and was disqualified from driving for 12 months. The judge said there's no doubt he will suffer for the rest of his life with the death of his sister on his conscience, and that the real victims are the other members of his family who are obviously going to suffer a double tragedy by having a jail term imposed on him. Helen Kapalos, NBN News. Lisa Varagnola's naked body was found dumped in mangroves at Ash Island on the 27th of January last year. But 18 months later, despite a lengthy investigation, police are no closer to finding the mother of five's attacker. At a coronial inquest today, Kevin Cody, who has a record of assaulting 3 other women, took the stand. Police prosecutor Phil Lloyd questioned him about the nature of the assault on the 3 women and the similarity of the injuries to Miss Varagnola. Cody said he never laid a hand on her and, when asked, denied killing her. Coroner Michael Morahan said the evidence forced him to deliver an open finding, saying that Varagnola was strangled to death, but how she died was unknown. In conclusion, he said it may be in the future that more information will come to light about her death to enable the persons who did this terrible crime to be caught. As yet, no one has been charged with the murder. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
At 191 centimetres, or around 6'3" in the old scale, Daniel Proctor has often stood head and shoulders above his rivals. But the 18-year-old is still trying to reach new heights and make the Australian under-22 squad.
Unbelievable. I mean, I was in under-20s last year and learned a lot from that, and I feel as if I can take that learning experience into these tryouts.
The Maitland teenager has made the initial squad for the team that will contest the World Championship, but he's under no illusions as to the task ahead. To make it, he'll have to survive at least 2 selection camps and beat some of the NBL's best rookies.
It's just one of my goals, and hopefully just keep working hard and I'll hopefully get it.
In more National Soccer League movements, Newcastle's Troy Halpin has left the Perth Glory but won't be returning to the Breakers. Instead, he's signed with Sydney Olympic. And Newcastle 10-pin bowling ace Amanda Bradley has returned from the US Open tournament as the best-placed amateur, finishing 6th overall. The only Australian invited to compete, the result has pushed her a step closer to taking the sport up full-time on the rich American circuit.
Thousands of people added their names to the reconciliation movement by marching across Sydney's Harbour Bridge earlier this year. And today, Newcastle City Council offered its own symbolic method of reconciliation by donating a pledge book to the Newcastle Regional Library, allowing even more people to say they're sorry. Newcastle Mayor John Tate set the example and was the first to add his name to the list. The book will be in Newcastle at various locations, finishing at Newcastle University on the 8th of September. Meanwhile, staff and students of schools around the Hunter were enjoying their National Aborigine and Torres Strait Islander Day of celebration today. At Fennell Bay Public School, a special assembly was held with a more traditional Aboriginal theme. The 450 students at the school were encouraged to wear the colours of the Aboriginal flag in support of the event, which they've celebrated for 10 years now. It's an event designed to encourage reconciliation and promote cultural diversity at a young age. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Really, I think this is the point where we've got to say this is critical. We've got to start finding some way to help these people.
On the outside, they're local landmarks, but the charm and history once you walk through the doors is the real attraction of these hotels.
They do recall a bygone age when you did have the mines in the area employing collectively thousands of people, and it was income from these people that provide the economic viability for the past existence of these buildings.
28 hotels built at the end of the 19th century have been included in a new pocket guidebook outlining the features of each heritage building. It's aimed at capitalising on what the Hunter has to offer.
We're saying to people outside the area, we've not only got the best wines in the world and the best accommodation infrastructure, we've also got some great heritage pubs that are well worth looking at.
The proceeds from the sale of the brochures will go towards supporting restoration works. And as the new owners of the Bellbird Hotel know, conserving the past is a costly exercise.
It's been ongoing since we've been here, which was last May. We've had constant restoration happening every day.
Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Jason Hoare and his girlfriend were heading home to Sydney after a party in Brisbane in March 1998 when the Suzuki Sierra he was driving was involved in a shocking head-on collision just north of Raymond Terrace. Longtime friend and partner 20-year-old Kimberly Gilchrist died moments later, Hoare suffering serious injuries which included the removal of his spleen and a badly broken jaw. Taking the stand during a district court trial in Newcastle this week, the 28-year-old Balmain man said he had no memory of the actual accident at the time and even now after more than 2 years. During closing arguments, the defence case relied on the notion that Hoare thought he was driving on a dual southbound lane, which failed to display a detour sign that caused the road to go in both directions. But the Crown argued the evidence suggested he had ample time to pull his vehicle over, especially if he'd seen a set of headlights coming towards him. Today in Newcastle District Court, a jury of 8 women and 4 men deliberated for more than 4.5 hours before finding him guilty of dangerous driving occasioning death. Sentencing submissions begin tomorrow. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
And a friend of theirs had all their bikes stolen from the motorbikes, tools and riding gear worth nearly $30,000 was taken from the and one even had a steering lock. But they all proved no match for Saturday's thieves. 99 and 2000 model, all very popular bikes. And local motorcycles, all
The new legislation has the best intentions at heart to protect children from abuse, but those laws will place greater responsibilities on administrators. Seminars like this one conducted last night at Newcastle are educating clubs on their new duties in terms of screening new workers and volunteers. Meanwhile, in basketball this weekend, the Newcastle Hunters have a big round in the State Premier League basketball. It's 2 plays 3 as the men take on Bankstown, while the 4th-placed Hunter Women's meet the number 2 ranked Bankstown side. Round 15 in Newcastle Rugby League sees South Newcastle play Cessnock at Marathon Stadium tomorrow, while Lakes host Waratah. On Sunday, Curry will be out to end a losing run against West. It's the final round in NBN soccer this weekend, with Cessnock and Maitland fighting for finals berths tomorrow, while 2 games on Sunday could well decide the top placings, with Edgeworth at Broadmeadow and Hamilton at home to the Gunners. In Newcastle Rugby Union, Hamilton is looking to confirm its semi-final chances against Maitland, while the Wanderers and Merriweather will resume their traditional rivalry as well.
The Sydney Swifts were determined to put on a show for their adopted home crowd, and that they did, taking the lead in the first quarter thanks to sharp shooting by Megan Anderson. With Natalie Sloan moved up front in the second, the Swifts went on a scoring spree, their defensive pressure giving them a 28-19 half-time advantage. The Kestrels closed the gap early in the third, but Australian vice-captain Liz Ellis caught them out. Anderson and Sloan putting the Swifts further in front, a run only stopped by the final siren. The Swifts winning 60 points to 35, Anderson scoring 31. Meanwhile, show jumpers from across the country are at Newcastle Showground this weekend for the 2nd annual City World Cup. The event features 16 divisions, including an all-important Olympic and World Cup qualifier tomorrow. Hopefuls using today's rounds to get their eye in. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. A penalty gave South Newcastle opening points at Marathon Stadium, but Cessnock made the first real mark on the scoreboard, Rod Blaine barging over. The Goannas then tried the old footy up the jumper trick, but it wasn't necessary, South practically handing them the next try. The Lions finally responded courtesy of first-grade debutant Jamie Batty, but Cessnock scored again to lead 18-8 at the break. South scored early in the second, but the Goannas replied once more to lead 22-12. Then, just when the game looked over, the Lions notched 2 quick tries to level the scoreline. An upset looked imminent, but the Goannas aren't second on the ladder for nothing. A penalty kick put them in front, a try sealing a 28-22 win.
In May of 1998, Rafferty's Resort on Lake Macquarie signed a contract with SOCOG to allocate 30 cottages for an expected 150 Olympic officials.
At the time, we embraced the whole concept because A, we wanted to sell accommodation, and B, we were very happy to help SOCOG and help the Olympic movement.
2 years on, and that contract has now been severed. SOCOG informing the resort its accommodation, along with an undisclosed number of other hotels in the region, is not required. SOCOG says it allowed for 25,000 beds for the Olympics, but demand has fallen short of that mark.
We actually asked if we could be relieved from our contract, which they let us out of early, and in fact we've resold all of those rooms now.
But it's not a happy outcome for everyone. Some hotels turned away other bookings, choosing instead to see out their SOCOG contract. They're now left with empty beds, less than 2 months away from the Games. It doesn't leave the hotels much time to fill the vacancies, but it may not be an impossible task.
Provided the other properties get out and market aggressively, they'll sell their rooms.
Waiting to hear from Soccer Australia, the Breakers have been contacted by irate fans who are fuming the code's governing body hasn't made a decision. It was hoped one would have been reached at the weekend, but late today there was still no word. Supporters phoned and emailed club CEO Maurice McAllister, saying they'll demonstrate in Sydney to vent their frustration if things continue to drag on. Meanwhile, the Breakers have released Robbie Andrzejewski and Luke Tomic from the club after one season. In NBN Soccer League, Edgeworth has taken the minor premiership after beating Broadmeadow 2-1 in the final game of the regular season. The Eagles finished level with Hamilton on 53 points, but a superior goal difference got them the number one spot on the ladder. That gives Edgeworth next weekend off, with Maitland and Broadmeadow to play the elimination semi and Hamilton taking on Cessnock in the qualifying round.
Year 2000 now, you can't have bloody scoreboard blacking out and lights going off and all that sort of thing, so it has to be rectified and make sure it's right for the semi.
When Senior Constable Reardon arrived at the scene of a domestic dispute in the Lake Macquarie suburb of Fishing Point in April, he came face to face with the man who almost took his life.
I was just taking a recce, just in the garage, seeing where he was, seeing if we could eyeball him, and unfortunately he was looking at me before I looked at him and had me lined up, shot.
Graham almost bled to death when the shotgun blast severed a main artery in his arm. But 7 operations and 3 months later, he was back on light duties at the Charlestown Police Station today, being welcomed by the region's top brass.
And he's had tremendous support from Dell and from his own family and from the police community generally, and that's been very impressive to see the sort of tremendous support he's received.
We don't get a lot of feedback, I suppose, from the public saying we're doing a good job or whatever, but every now and again you do, and it just goes to show that people do appreciate us.
Meantime, Newcastle officer Mitch Harvey has been named Constable of the Year at a ceremony in Newcastle today. The 28-year-old who joined the force 10 years ago was voted in by his peers.
You never know what's going to come up next. That's probably why I joined the police. And the people you work with too, you couldn't meet a better group of people to work with who are pretty genuine people.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.